Actually, everything about this epidemic was impossible for people to predict. We didn't know when it would occur. We didn't know where it would originate. We didn't know what the symptoms would be, the death rate. We still don't know in a lot of ways. We didn't know what medicines would work, what equipment we'd need to fight it. All of that was basically unknowable. But one thing was easy to predict. We knew that at one point there was going to be a pandemic. Pandemics have been with us for all of human history. You cannot stop a pandemic. You can only prepare for it. And that's one thing we didn't do. From 2003 to 2015, at least 10 separate government reports warned that in a similar outbreak to the one we're going through now, America would suffer a critical lack of ventilators. Congress, which is thrilled to spend millions bombing Syria based on grainy cell phone video, never bothered to fix that problem or to make sure America had stockpiles of other critical medical supplies. You know these stories. At one Miami VA hospital, workers have been told to reuse their surgical masks for a week. In New York, nurses have donned garbage bags in place of proper protective clothing. And everywhere, there's a shortage of the now famous N95 masks, the ones so important to stopping the spread of this disease. It'd be one thing if America invested as much as possible in our emergency healthcare system and still fell short. All of us would understand that. But that's not what happened, hardly. Instead, our leaders spent enormous sums of your tax dollars improving the healthcare in countries that hate us. Afghanistan tops that list, of course. Your government spent $14.6 million building a 100-bed hospital in Gardez. That's just one among a million examples. But in this case, after 5 years of work, 5 years, a review found the hospital still wasn't finished and had many basic problems like exit points pointing in the wrong direction, among many others. At the same time, $37 million of your dollars went to improving Afghanistan's pharmaceutical system. Specifically, and brace yourself, it's, quote, supply chain management. During that same period of time, a report produced for Congress warned that our own country's pharmaceutical supply chain was dangerously dependent upon China, something we've learned the hard way is true. Congress ignored that, though, and continued to shovel money into Afghanistan. In at least a couple of cases, we paid for medical facilities that never even existed. They weren't there. It was pure fraud. Afghan warlords got rich, you got ripped off. But Congress kept sending money. And then there's this. On March 12th of this year, not even 3 weeks ago, a newspaper in New Jersey reported what it called shocking shortages of essential medical supplies in state hospitals, which is terrifying in the middle of a pandemic, as we all know. Yet that very same day, the United States Agency for International Development announced it was sending 12,000 surgical masks, 12,000 surgical gloves, 1,400 surgical gowns, not to Newark or Camden or Jersey City, no, to Tajikistan. It's hard to believe, but they did it a lot. Similar shipments of medical supplies went to Uzbekistan, Thailand, Laos, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan. Not only are none of those places in America, they're not even in crisis. Between them, all the countries we just listed have fewer cases of coronavirus than the state of New Jersey does right now. But here's the most amazing of all. On February 7th of this year, after the pandemic had already arrived in the United States, the U.S. State Department announced that almost 18 tons of medical supplies, including masks, gowns, and respirators, were being shipped to China. China, the country that started this disaster, the country whose duplicity made it worse, the country whose, by the way, whose economy is outstripping ours. That country got 18 tons of American medical supplies, supplies that we desperately need. Are you shocked by that? You shouldn't be. Our leaders did this. These are the same people who've gotten rich on Chinese money and then censored any criticism of the Chinese government. These are the people anxious to send your kids to some war in the Middle East in a country you've never heard of, but totally unwilling to guard our own borders with troops. These are the same people who sell U.S. citizenship to Chinese oligarchs and then give free health care to MS-13 members. At first, all of this seemed like negligence. And then you realize they just really don't like you.